Hi, I'm Sam. I work at Van Winden's Garden Center, and we're going to be talking about poinsettias. So this shipment arrived on Monday, very fresh. Unfortunately, we're not going to be seeing the numbers that we've seen in previous years come through. There's been, I think last year, a lot of the growers actually had crop losses, and so in order to mitigate that, they are not doing pre-orders as much as here's what crop we have to sell, instead of trying to sell crop that isn't, up to standard or whatever. So the common name was named after Joel Roberts Poinsett, who was the first U.S. ambassador essentially to Mexico. And he's credited with the one introducing it to American horticulture. It was in the 1820s, so whether or not he deserves the credit is another question, but who knows. So anyways, so the poinsettia is named after Poinsett. So whether you pronounce that I in there or not.
Okay. So if I say poinsettia, I'm not saying it wrong.
No.
Okay. Really nobody's saying it.
Nobody's saying it wrong. Right. Exactly. Poinsettias are fun. They're a type of euphorbia, actually Euphorbia pulcherrima, which pulcherrima, and I looked this up, means most beautiful.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So,
so the most beautiful euphorbia.
Most beautiful euphorbia.
I love it.
And what we think of as the flowers, as probably many people know, are not flowers at all. These are modified leaves. They're called bracts. They are not a petal at all. And in fact, they're not part of the proper flower. They're part of the inflorescence. This is the flower here.
So that little thing.
So this is a female flower right here. This is a male flower right here.
My.
When you're looking at which plant is the freshest, you want to be looking at the flower buds.
These little tiny.
The little tiny things. So the flower buds that are really open, so like this flower, this one over here, has several open flowers.
Right.
This one here really has one open flower.
Right.
It's on the same plant, so not going to be huge of difference, but this is a fresher inflorescence. Ideally, you want to be looking for something where the flower buds are still pretty tight, haven't turned yellow much, because that yellow coloration is the mature floral parts. So this time of year, any poinsettia that you're taking home has been in a greenhouse for its most recent experience. And if you just pop this outside on your porch because you want a splash of color on your porch, it's not gonna like it. It's gonna go, I just went from a really nice cozy greenhouse that was at minimum 60 degrees and now it's 40 degrees and I don't like it. We don't recommend, at least the freshly purchased ones, going out on your porch. They're gonna be more stressed. They might even present with cold damage just because it's so shocking from one environment to the other.
Okay.
So they wanna stay moist. Right now, I can feel it, even though it's got some weight to it. It doesn't really, there's no moisture on my fingers, even though there's a little bit of soil that came off with me.
Okay.
So these are definitely gonna get a good drink today.
Okay.
What I like to do with these guys is water them into a saucer and then let it sit in the saucer for 5-10 minutes. And, when I'm doing this in a large batch. Because I'm rotating them out through the saucers. And that way, any water that, didn't get absorbed that first pass through can kind of get reabsorbed on the second, and then go put it back where it wants to be in display. They don't want to dry out. If they dry out, they wilt down, they look sad, and it just, even though they'll perk back up if it hasn't been too long, it's not a robust of a plant anymore. It's weakened the plant. Another thing to be aware of with greenhouse poinsettias is that their stems are very brittle. And that's kind of true for a lot of euphorbia. Because they grow so quickly, they are they don't really develop like that firm woody tissue. So they don't support themselves as easily. So you'll also see, like, in some of the big pots, I don't know if there's any here, but you'll see support stands in them, in some of them.
And that's because?
And that's because they can get so top heavy, they can actually pull themselves over. They're so delicate and they're so brittle. It's one of those plants where the less you handle it, the better. So these colors really only show up in the winter. And these plants are photoperiod sensitive, which means that it is the length of day and length of night that the plant is responding to with its flowering. So for poinsettias, to get them to color up, they need at least 14 hours of darkness every night for 6 to 8 weeks consecutively. And that tells them it's winter, and winter is when they want to bloom.
So it's not really the temperature.
It's not so much the temperature, no. And these are native to, and especially if it's like, well, if it's wintertime when they bloom, but they don't want to be out on the porch, it's because they're native to Mexico and Central America. They are winter bloomers. They just need protection in our winter because we're too cold for them. So if you want to try to get it to color up, you could honestly take it and you could put it in a closet for 14 hours every night. If that's what you want to do, if that's what makes sense to exclude light. Some people are like, no way, that's way too much work.
Wait, what?
The other option is if you have, like, in your yard or area, if you have a place where you don't have any outdoor lights flicking on at night, you could do it there. But like, I wouldn't expect it to color up on your front porch if you have a porch light that's on most of the night, you know, because that interrupts it.
Right.
And the thing is they really need that 14 hours of darkness to not be interrupted, because as soon as the way that the plant senses light and senses length of light or length of darkness, as soon as a flash of light interrupts that darkness, it resets the clock. I have a great story from college. My greenhouse management professor, who's really involved in the floriculture industry, was talking about how there was this poinsettia nursery and they were having this problem with one of their houses. They would have this like corner that just wasn't coloring up and couldn't figure it out. Eventually they figured out that the night security guard would go and he'd open the door to check on things, and that amount of light exposure that came in through that open door was enough to stop the coloring. They're very sensitive to that. And similar concept basically to get Christmas cactus to rebloom too.
Really?
They need that longer period of darkness. It's quite an impressive industry because in like the last 6 weeks of the year, these numbers might be a little old, but roughly 70 million poinsettias are sold not in California, in the United States. I think like 70% of the market at least used to be based in California. There's always a lot of concern about access to these plants, especially if you have small children or animals. I think eating them would be unpleasant because it probably tastes really bad. It's a euphorbia. That being said, there have not been any recorded fatalities in almost all circumstances of consumption. I imagine if you ate an entire plant, your stomach would not, thank you. But it won't kill you. It'll, in all likelihood, if you get a little bit ingested, it's not even going to make an effect on you. The sap is, it is like the latex euphorbia sap. So that can be a little irritating if you get it all over your skin and you don't wash it off. Also, it can cause photosensitivity. So if you get it on your skin, you don't wash it off, and then you go out in sunlight, you might have a little bit more of a reaction there. At least with other euphorbia, that's a concern. So, you know, don't use a chainsaw to cut down euphorbia. You'll regret it. There's really not too much to worry about. And the other thing with plants like these is they don't taste good. You know, so if you have a nibbler, unlikely they'll continue nibbling. The one thing is if you have especially like toddlers in their grabbing ages, don't have it within grabbing reach because they'll just break it apart. And then they'll get sap everywhere and it won't be very pleasant, but it won't be toxic. You know, it's not going to be a health concern. It's just a frustrating situation. I'm Sam at Van Winden's Garden Center. Thanks for listening and learning about poinsettias today.